Hi, Paul. How are you? It's Frank
Good.
DeFreitas.
Hey.
Are you ready to do the interview?
I'm ready.
Okay, why don't we jump right in and start right away?
Sounds good.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are interested in hearing what you have to say. You know what I mean?
We can only hope.
Okay. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what this instant holographic film is about, and also the kit, but basically focusing more on the technology or the usage of the film itself.
Essentially, what we call the Liti Holo instant hologram film is kind of the equivalent or analogous to Polaroid film is for pictures. Essentially, there's no developing, no chemicals, and when you're done shooting your hologram, you're able to look at it right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really exciting. I mean, for most of us who have done holograms before, you know, I've told the engineers who work for us here that you're not a real holographer until you shoot a hologram, you know, set the whole thing up, shoot it, and then you go in a room and develop it for another half an hour or 45 minutes, get chemicals all over your clothes, and then come out and you still don't know if you have a hologram.
Yeah.
And this is just a, you know, fantastic way for people who have done holograms and like making holograms and are looking for a way to make it a little easier to be able to see your holograms right away without any processing, get straight to what we're all interested in. What's even more exciting for us is we think that this is a big breakthrough that's going to allow a lot more people who might be interested in holograms but just haven't had either the time or have been scared off a little bit by some of the complexities to get into making holograms, to get comfortable with it and get used to it and familiar with it, which we hope is going to grow the holography community as well as what I call the sports of holography as a whole.
Yeah. And even using the film for mock-ups before you would use a more expensive plate for more experienced holographers as well, further on down the line. I think it's a good start to what we have. And even as it stands right now, it's excellent for schools, you know, educators and hobbyists that just want to get started with minimum amount of investment to see if they'd like to take it a step further. I'm sure you're not saying that, you know, we should all throw away our chemistry and stop doing 30 by 40 centimeter plates, but this is a great way to get started. How did you guys come up with this? For what you can say. I'm sure there has to be a story behind it, if not I'm not asking the actual formulas, but what's the story behind it?
Yeah. You know, we all know in the holography community that holographic film has been something that's been a real difficulty. It's got a long history. A lot of us remember back when AGFA was still making holographic film for everyone. They closed down.
Yeah.
DuPont made a photopolymer, but that meant you had to make a big switch in terms of the wavelengths you were using, a lot of other things. There were some benefits. But DuPont has never really made their material an individual material that you know, regular people could use.
Yeah.
We've used it for ourselves in our Liti 3D holograms and in our Liti Holographics commercial holograms. So we've had access to that as well as when I was up at MIT. But really that hasn't been a film for the average person. And right now, I think just about the only film out there that is used quite a bit is the Slavich film, which people have used. There's also I believe it's called the BB plates, made by Color Holographics. But those are really the only two sources out there, and both of those are, you know, silver halide traditional materials that need processing and all of those types of things, and even they can be a little difficult to get a hold of. And we really, both for our own purposes, because we make so many holograms, and for the purpose of the holography community at large, have been very interested in seeing a material that could, you know, have some of the benefits of photopolymers, you know, the dry processing, and of course the holy grail perhaps of no processing, but also make it a material that wasn't all bound up in some sort of other legalities or corporate issues that, a regular person could have access to. And so we started working on this actually not too long ago, and actually had some reasonable success that really excited us. The reason we've kind of coupled this hologram film with the hologram kits is because the first film we've come out with is just a single color sensitive, just red sensitive, and it's really only capable right now of doing transmission holograms.
Yeah.
So again, for somebody looking to do more art holography or higher quality holograms, I think right now you're correct. This would be a great tool to do tests, to kind of get your setup going, or to just do the quick and dirty stuff. But we've kind of coupled it with the hologram kit because it's a perfect introduction to get this material out there for a whole group of people who just have never made holograms before. And really have no inkling of what it's about, and it's always been something probably too sophisticated for them. We're trying to bring that down to a level where you can make holograms on your kitchen table.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
That's really exciting. And this material, we are really hoping there will be a lot more beyond this, that this is only the first step. So.
Why don't we go step by step through the process of, starting to make one of these from start to finish and what it entails?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, if you get the hologram kit, which is a great, easy way to just have everything in one box. I was actually at home last night, took one of our kits home to test, which I have done periodically, and was making holograms on my kitchen counter with my 4-year-old daughter.
Wow.
And really it's a matter of, kind of opening the box up, following the step-by-step instructions. And like I said, a lot of the things that we've taken just as part of our normal lives as holographers, vibration, stability, film that you're going to have to slosh chemicals around to develop. It's going to take a long time. I mean, in the course of an hour, we were able to make holograms.
Now, let me just clarify something.
Sure.
Are you saying there's no vibration isolation that's needed with this, or am I misunderstanding?
There certainly is, and getting into the details of holography and people who know holograms are always vibration sensitive.
Yeah.
What we've tried to
at the
do
present time, anyway.
Right, and until they can make pulsed laser diodes of sufficient power, which will limit them through the FDA or something else anyway. But until that point, holograms will always be vibration sensitive. The keys we've tried to do in this hologram kit is to make it as easy as possible. The reason we make primarily transmission holograms with this kit is actually twofold. It's not just the fact that the film only makes transmission holograms. There's also an additional reason, which is transmission holograms have a lower spatial frequency.
Yes.
And therefore require much less stability. And so your average kitchen table should have the stability necessary to make a transmission hologram with our hologram kit. Especially
single beam.
Yes, exactly.
I did a split beam the other night.
Okay. How'd it come out?
Fair results, not as clear as the single beam, but I was working quickly, as you know. I think we spoke earlier in the day, and it was just something to throw together, set it up, see if I'd get something, and I did. So
cool.
I think eventually we can fine tune this in our own little labs and things like that, and get what we need out of it.
Oh, and this is the first step.
Sure.
We have up until now, through our Liti Holographics kind of corporate holograms and our Liti 3D consumer holograms for individuals, we've primarily focused on the technology of making the holograms, being able to make full-color holograms accessible to individuals and to companies. This is, really a beginning for us into holographic materials. And I can tell you we learn more and more every time we go at it.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the things we've tried to do in introducing this film is, there was a certain hesitance with us initially to offer the film separately. because we knew it wasn't something that holographers out there were going to be using to make their finest holograms.
Yeah.
And a lot of people prefer to make reflection holograms because you can see them under a wider range of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that there would be some fine-tuning necessary to get up to some of those things, but we really felt that the sooner we could get this out there and into the hands of people, the sooner we could get some feedback, and also the sooner people could start to make use of it. This film may not fit all of the needs and uses that you have. We do think it's a terrific coupling with the hologram kit, and we think for the right applications and the right purposes, it could be very useful to people who make holograms with their own setups and in other situations.
Workshops, demonstrations, it's perfect for.
And we really want to encourage holographers and people who are in the community, play around with it, test it out, see how it works for you, but most importantly, keep an eye on what we're doing. In the coming weeks and months and years, we hope to broaden the range of what we can do in size of the film, making reflection film, making different color sensitivities, a variety of things. This is really, we hope to gain the support of the holography community more from the standpoint of we're trying to build a future for all of us. I mean, imagine if, all of us as holographers get to sit around and tell our kids and our grandkids, I remember when you actually had to develop hologram film. I think that would be a great thing and would make it a lot more fun for all of us if we could get down to what we really enjoy doing, which is making holograms, and this film is getting there. It's got a lot of those terrific qualities of no processing, immediate gratification, things that can make it a lot more fun for us as well.
Well, it's a very exciting time, regardless of its present capabilities, because we can always look ahead and see what it is that's coming down the pike. Yeah. How about if I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
Now, you have to hit this film pretty hard. Why don't you talk a little bit about the exposures?
Yeah. With the laser diode that we include in the hologram kit, we're expecting an exposure time between 2 minutes to 8 minutes.
And that's covering the entire surface area with that amount of divergence, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it's you want to be, particularly in the first couple of times you use the film, you want to be as conservative as possible. So it may even be beneficial to try and get a strong beam in there as much as possible to start to get the parameters of what's going on. But we're estimating right now that the sensitivity of the film is about 60 millijoules per centimeter squared. So, the holograms I shot last night with my daughter, I did one where I had the beam covering the entire film, but pretty tight.
Yeah.
Not overspread a whole lot. And I was able to make a hologram in about a 4-minute exposure.
Yeah. Which is pretty good with a diode, because a diode is more consistent over a given area compared to a Heaney, which has hot spots in the center.
And we've been very pleasantly surprised with diodes in general, and specifically with the diodes that we're supplying with this kit. We went to test the coherence length of this to kind of get a range for what we're in. It was huge. Yeah. I mean, I think we measured up to about 2 meters coherence length. Easy. Before we just had to stop and say, okay, there's really no point of going further. Time-wise, one of the other holograms I did last night, I actually spread the beam out a little bit more so I could get more object illumination, cover the film a little more evenly. And I wound up doing an 8-minute exposure, which is on the higher side of what I like, but it worked very well. What's really interesting about this material is because it's self-developing. The one I did for 4 minutes, I actually stopped at 4 minutes because our heater kicked in the background in my house. And what was interesting is I was watching the hologram, and you could actually see the image through the hologram film start to brighten and darken, kind of vibrate.
Isn't that something? Well, it would be a great application for holographic interferometry in the classroom.
Yeah, I was actually getting essentially, we were seeing a half a wavelength movement of the film or of the object, one of the two, because our heater kicked on.
Isn't that something?
In the house, and it was really cool because you could see it right there. It had already developed, and you were getting that interference of the light coming off of the object, interfering with the light that was already being reconstructed from the hologram.
That's big news.
And it was really cool. I mean, it told me that I may need to turn off my heater in the house when I'm making holograms on my kitchen counter. But, again, I'm sitting there in the dark. We've got all the windows open. We're in a relatively dark area, but we didn't do anything special. A number of times during all of my exposures, the refrigerator's compressor kicked on, which I thought was going to be an issue, but wasn't. And there's just a number of things that, as holographers, we tend to overcompensate for everything to make sure that our holograms turn out well, and we spend time to make sure that we're not losing holograms because of those things. But it's kind of exciting to go in the other direction and say, what can you get away with?
Yeah.
How simple can we make this?
You like to try and squeeze as much brightness as you can out of an image. And Newport Research had their instant holographic camera, which I believe was like electrostatic in nature or something like that. But they used a very small plate, which I believe is smaller than the plates that you offer.
I think so. Do you remember how much that kit was?
Oh my! It was thousands
like
upon.
$4,000,
It was
$2,000, something like that. So
yeah.
Here we've recreated something that for $99. So this is the type of thing we like to do. And when I left MIT, my vision for a hologram company, and actually, I'm one of those weird kids who this is what I knew I wanted to do. Since I was a kid. What I always wanted to do was put holograms in the hands of normal people. And that's what we've tried to do with all of our different kind of divisions, whether it's making full-color Liti 3D holograms of people's families with their kids waving back and stuff like that, or here getting people interested in holograms and to be able to tinker around with it and make their first hologram, hopefully to get them interested enough to move on and to do other things.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great introduction to the field of photonics and optical communication technologies. All of that for kids,
Very much so.
Absolutely.
And imagine as parents, being able to, go to work and say, "What did you guys do last night?" And you say, "Well, me and my son or daughter made holograms last night." A great educational experience for the kids and fun for the parents as well.
Now, safe light. How dark do you need to have it? Do you need a safe light? Can you use a safe light? What do we need to worry about with this?
Yeah, generally speaking, what we know of so far, and again, I just want to emphasize, we got this material out there quickly so people could play with it, test it, and use it, rather than a big company would keep this in the lab for 6 months to 2 years to test every single parameter about it. So we tried to get it out there quickly first. What we know right now is the peak sensitivity should be around 668 nanometers.
Okay.
But we know we actually use 2 different laser diodes with the kits that we send. One is 650 nanometers, and the other is 632 nanometers, which is very close to a helium neon laser at 633. So, and the film works very well with both of those. So we know that the material covers the red spectrum fairly well.
Yeah, I've used both.
Yeah, so I mean it's sensitive in the red over a broad range. We expect if you're using a Heaney, you should be able to use it. We're not sure how far up it goes, and there is unfortunately, I don't think this will be usable for people using pulse ruby lasers right now, just because of perhaps the sensitivity, but also for other features that the self-developing nature may not allow pulse to work very well with it. But it covers the red spectrum pretty well, and with kind of an average sensitivity of 60 millijoules per centimeter square. We're hoping to improve that shortly.
Now, would the perfect exposure with this material be to take this emulsion just to the point when it becomes clear? if that were to be the perfect exposure, rather than doing a short exposure and then, exposing it to white light until the plate itself clears from that. If you were just going to work on the table, and this isn't for kids or anything with the kid, this is for the holographers out there that are working with it.
Right.
Would that be close to the perfect exposure to just stop that exposure right as that plate clears?
Interestingly enough, you should be able to overexpose this material.
Okay, great.
And that is what I would recommend, is going for a longer exposure than necessary.
Okay.
Now, anytime you do that, the longer your exposure, the longer you will be susceptible to vibration.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got a solid setup, and like I said, I'm making a 8-minute exposure on my kitchen countertop for transmission, simple single beam transmission holograms. So, but I would say overexpose it. Really, with the film, it's a slight bluish color.
Yes.
And as you expose it, it bleaches out that color a little bit, particularly in the brighter areas of the beam.
Yeah.
And then we do recommend, if you would like to clear up that blue color afterwards, just hold it up to an ordinary light bulb for 20 seconds or so.
Well, because of that blue color, holographers out there that are experimenting with this, you can monitor your exposure. Now, if you have a science and mechanic light meter, which is a very popular light meter for holographers out there,
right,
and you take your probe and put it on the other side of where the plate is going to be, because that plate is blue to begin with during the beginning of the exposure and clears as the exposure progresses, you can set that science and mechanic meter up so that you can watch the exposure actually take place. Take a clear plate, take a blue plate, get readings from both of them, then set the science and mechanic meter, set the actual range to 4, and set the fine adjustment to around 4 to 6. This is going to make that science and mechanic meter extremely sensitive. And try and get your meter so the needle's up around 40. When you start your exposure, you can watch this needle.
That's a great idea, and that really is. I mean, you can even just in less technical terms, if you are watching the beam that's passing through the film, you can actually watch, the areas where the reference beam is start to brighten up because more light is passing through.
Yes.
So both on a more technical side and a more informal side, you can get a feel for how it is progressing. And that is really the bleaching, both as a measurement of seeing how your exposure is progressing, but really holding it up to a light bulb afterwards to get rid of the remainder of that blue color will brighten it up just a little bit, but it really is not a processing step. It really is not
I see.
doing anything formal to the makeup of the material. It's really just getting rid of that blue color so it's no longer there to interfere with light passing through the plate.
Yeah.
So it really is a self-developing material that does all the work, as it's actually being hit and exposed.
Yeah. I know we spoke a few days ago about this, but I'd recommend having the emulsion side facing the object. Would you?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
We actually, and this was something that it really shouldn't make that much of a difference. But I think I was mentioning to you, we've gotten in the habit. The holographic plates themselves are a piece of glass about 1/16 of an inch thick, maybe a little thicker, that have the film coating on one side, and then there's actually a cover sheet, a thin plastic cover sheet. We did have a couple of people who we hadn't thought of this, and this was some good feedback, who asked, am I supposed to take that cover sheet off?
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Exactly, and the cover sheet is supposed to stay on there. It has a purpose, and it needs to be on there for the film to properly function. And we have just gotten in the habit of placing that thin cover sheet side away from the laser light and away from the object. We don't expect there will be a huge difference any way you place it.
Yeah, it depends on whether that laser is highly polarized or not, and you're hitting that glass side. And I know you recommend 45-degree angle, so you may get some internal interference inside the secondary reflections within the glass.
Yes, and the glass is going to be also a higher quality optical medium, and so having all your laser light pass through the glass directly to the film and not have that plastic cover sheet in the way. That is what we've just gotten in the habit of doing, and it didn't even strike us to mention that early on. But I think that's a good point. Yeah,
and like we just spoke, angle you recommend 45, but would Brewster's angle be better to come in?
Absolutely.
For people who have experience with that.
Absolutely.
And know what it is.
Brewster's angle would be preferred so that you reduce, I think, what's often called wood grain fringes, and also there's multiple reflections in there. 45 degrees we recommend as part of the kit, really, because
it's easy.
It's a nice, simple number.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what 45 degrees is. But
good heavens, don't ask anybody to measure anything else besides 45 degrees.
That's exactly right. And at 45 degrees, you could get a reference beam coming in at the right angle and do a nice single beam transmission hologram. But that is by no means a limiting factor or even a parameter on the film.
Yeah.
It should be workable over a wide range of angles. Brewster's angle is typically preferred just because it reduces additional reflections within the material and should make it a little cleaner and nicer.
Have you had any images disappear? I have.
Have you really?
Yes, the one...
Like show up and then disappear? Or?
Yeah, the real nice one that I did was of a small clock. One of those little clocks that you can put a little battery in or whatever, a little brass clock with a face and everything. Put it on a nice angle, and it's got a satin finish so that it was a nice reflection.
Right.
And I think I did that Monday night and sent you the emails on... actually, I sent you the emails on Monday night because Tuesday was election.
Okay.
Yeah, I just left it there, and I haven't been back over to the table, so I was going to leave it there. It's been in the beam, and I leave my laser on 24 hours a day. The beam's been spread, illuminating the hologram. And I was going to go over this morning and take a photo of it, but most of it's gone.
Really?
Yeah.
We have had holograms that we have shot and put up from early tests when we first started making this material that look as good as the day they were made.
But have they been left in laser light, though, illuminated?
I don't think we've just left it there.
Yeah,
but
give it a try and see what happens.
We've had a lot of them left out in the in ambient light, and what you're saying to me sounds like
it's almost like a
left
printout.
On in the laser light, it sounds like there might have been some residual activity left in the material.
Yeah.
That it started to make, and if you think, did you still have the object there the whole time? Did you still have the clock there, or did you take that away?
No, that was away.
Yeah, if that was gone, and there was still some residual activity in the film, it might have started to form a real simple diffraction grating.
Interesting.
Between the reference beam light, just the laser light coming in, and then a second surface reflection off of the front and back surfaces that may have degraded it or deteriorated it, because I know we've made a number of holograms over the course of time we've been doing this, and we leave them out in the light here in the office, 24 hours a day, out all the time, and they look, terrific. So it may be that continual hitting it with laser light continued to create some activity long after it seemed like most of the hologram function of the film was used up.
Yeah, I'll have to put one of the other...
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to put one of the original ones in that has just been sitting on the desk in the ambient studio light, in the lab, and I'm sure that's there.
This material should be actually more robust than silver halide material. Silver halide material, as we all know, can be sensitive to humidity, sensitive to swelling and shrinking. Like regular photographic images can fade and deteriorate and do a lot of things. This material should not have those kind of issues. It should be more robust.
Anything else you want to add on this? I think we covered a lot of the questions that as far as how to use this material. Is there anything else that should be asked that I haven't asked about it?
You know,
how are things going with your portraits?
What's that?
How are things going with your portrait services?
Good. I mean, we continue to get orders and people calling us and emails from all over the world. It's been really exciting to see people take to that and to be able to offer it. I mean, $150 or $149 full color hologram, 9 inches by 12 inches with movement and stuff has been really good. But it's been this latest holography kit that we've been putting a lot of focus on. And, we just want to encourage people to play around with it, use it for holographers to understand that this is not the end-all and be-all of what the holographic film can do, that this is really a first step. And so treat it as such.
Yeah.
Treat it as something that, we can start to use as a tool and start to use for certain functions, and then keep your eye on us for developments to come. And then, I'd highly encourage people, it's this community who's listening to this right now, we believe can be like the early computer age, when personal computers were first coming out. Those first computers didn't even have screens. It didn't even have a display. It was this group of people who figured out that a bunch of little flips and switches on the front of the machine was the future of what's going on. And I think all of us who have made holograms and who have caught that bug know that this is, there's something there. And I think the hologram kit and some of the work we're doing right now is a great way to, get your friends, get your family, pass on that bug that's inspired all of us to other people and get them interested, and have them have an opportunity to see what this is all about.
So, as someone that goes back to the days of the Timex Sinclair, I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, this is, it takes a group like this who is excited about what's going on, then it takes some developments in the industry. I mean, without the development of the personal computer, without the technology behind that, it would have remained something that just a bunch of people found interesting to use, on a time serve or a timeshare basis.
Yeah. And sometimes I wish it had stayed that way. To tell you the truth.
From sitting in front of the computer all day long.
Yeah.
But it's, we think there's obviously a community of people listening to this here, and the holography community is a bit of a tight-knit, small group. And, if we can all kind of band together and help move this forward, we think some of the developments we have now with both the technology that we use for the Liti 3D holograms to make some really sophisticated holograms at a terrific consumer-level price, and this new, self-developing instant hologram film, you can really start to see some things come together. I mean, we still believe that, our kids are going to be talking about, I can't believe you had family portraits that were only two-dimensional. I can't believe that you, Frank, used to have pictures on your wall that didn't move and wave back at you.
Yeah.
These are the things that we see and we think are possible. We're fully aware of the restrictions, the limitations, the difficulties involved, but we also think that they're possible of being overcome.
Let me ask you this question.
About it. Yeah.
With this 99 kit, would it be possible for me to project three-dimensional holographic dinosaurs onto a stage, life-size? Have you gotten any of those emails yet?
We regularly get, and we have as long as we've been in business.
Yes.
My favorite is the phone call. Somebody called and said, look, I saw this in a movie, so I know it's possible. I'm opening a restaurant, and I'd like a holographic waitress to show up at your table, take your order, and then disappear.
Yeah, and they're serious.
Are you the ones doing this?
Yeah.
And it's a two-edged sword.
I know.
On one hand,
yeah.
The movies, the television, people's imaginations have done a terrific job, and I think we as sometimes cynical holographers need to realize that kind of picture is what gives people an excitement for holograms. On the other side, I think it's important that, and I think part of this kit is to help show people what holograms really are.
Yeah.
To build that familiarity so that they understand. We get lots of questions about, can this kit help me project full-scale dinosaurs on a stage, like you said? And the answer is no, but that gives us an opportunity to tell people that type of technology is only possible in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what is possible.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those can be opportunities for people to learn and be educated so that we can get it out of this situation where they think it is, either so easy or, on the other side, so hard.
Yeah. And it's been that way for so long now.
Very much so. There's a huge, education process and making people more aware. You guys at Holo World have done a good job of getting that message out there. Being a beacon for people who are interested in this to go and get information, to get involved. And I think a lot of people have probably made their first holograms, referencing things and watching your website. And we want to be a tool to do that as well. It involves answering a lot of questions and sometimes a lot of silly questions. But, we've got to continue to push and continue to get that word out there, because the more information people can get, the more they can understand what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is. There are really two camps. There's a group of people who think anything and everything they see in the movies is possible. On the other side, there are a lot of people that I have talked to, heard from, gotten emails from, who didn't know that they could get their own personal hologram from Liti 3D,
mm-hmm.
and that it was something that would be affordable, who had no idea that some of the technologies out there are possible. And I guarantee you most people don't think that they could make a hologram at home on their kitchen counter.
Yeah.
And it's both of those camps need the education, need knowledgeable people in this community to help kind of answer their questions gently,
mm-hmm.
provide them good educational information about what can and can't be done to move us forward. And I think the next couple of years are going to be really exciting.
Well, you're a good representative of your product and of holography in general, Paul.
I appreciate it.
I'll make sure that there's a link on the website to your web page.
Good deal.
For ordering and more information, and I want to thank you for being on the show.
I appreciate the time.
Any last comments?
No. If there's anybody out there who's got questions, obviously, about this, feel free to visit the website. It is www.litiholo, and that's LITIHOLO.com. And feel free to hit one of the email links there and send us a question. We try to answer those as rapidly as possible and get the information out there. And we'll put you on the right track, even if what we're doing isn't the right stuff. We usually try and point people in the right direction in general.
Okay. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Frank.
All right.
Appreciate
Take care.
it.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.